for those of you watching, we apologize if you missed, if we got cut off in the middle there. I had a power surge in my house. Made me run and get a bunch of tea. Went out to the market at the same time. But no, power surge in the house. And then for some reason, when Mike used the word perseverous, everything went crazy.
No. Recidivist.
Recidivist.
And you use ombudsman too, also
which means habitual, which is a good
crash their servers.
Hey, I didn't go to college for 8 years for nothing.
Apparently not. All right, so we're gonna pick up where we were. Kevin hopefully will join us again. I think we've lost the great Kevin Allen maybe, but I know he's got to do other things. But at 2, so hopefully he.
Oh, and he's frozen in time. Eck is out.
I'm not out.
You were frozen there for a second.
No, we're okay. We're good. I'm not gonna freeze. Promise.
Okay. Raise the thermostat to 55. Do yourself a favor.
We blew a fuse in the house. Apparently, we can't 3D print an R2D2 while doing this podcast. So, we now know this. We know it, so we're good.
Let's get on to the prediction.
All right, here we go. We're going to get on to the Western Conference. And, yeah, so Kevin's been invited again. We should be good to go. We have more news. I guess you guys discussed a few things while I was gone, right?
We discussed Torres, but we didn't discuss the waiver claims.
Okay, let's get into some of the waiver claims real quick. First of all, on the island, we have a waiver claim, and an interesting one, I think, actually, for a couple things. And Dan, you put it really well on your blog too. That this kind of gives us some hints a little bit about maybe Halak.
Yeah, even though he practiced today, it has to be some indication that he might not be ready to go, with the Islanders claiming J.F. Berube from the Kings. I've seen Berube play a lot, as they do play the Sound Tigers and the Wolfpack quite a bit. He is a very good AHL goalie who had an outstanding season last year on the Calder Cup winning Manchester Monarchs. He has not played in the NHL, but he is a very good AHL goalie. I know some will point to his save percentage not being great down there, but 39 wins and 7 losses is what it is, and his goals against was very good too. I don't know what this means at the NHL level once Halak is healthy, but it clearly means right now that the Islanders were not comfortable with Stefan Williams, their rookie prospect, being a backup goalie when he's only played 5 games in the American Hockey League and is just 1 year removed from college.
Yeah, no. And the Kings liked him. I mean, the Kings were high on him, and they really were. This is not a guy that they completely. I didn't think we're going to give up on. What are your thoughts on him, Russ, as a prospect?
I mean, he's pretty good, but I'm kind of worried. Where is the Islanders' first game, at home or on the road? I didn't look.
It's home against Brooklyn. I'm sorry, it's home against Chicago.
Okay. See, I mean, again, if they're going to have any...
It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just home against Chicago.
I know. Home against Chicago. Think about this for a minute. Just think for a minute. If they have an AHL goalie in net against Chicago, first home game when they've moved to Brooklyn, this could be really bad, Dan. I mean, this is not good PR. I can't imagine them, A, winning the game, and B, coming out of there.
He's not going to start on Friday. Thomas Greiss would start.
Okay, you weren't saying Greiss's name, so I was thinking maybe he was somehow...
No, I just think if Halak's not ready, they were not comfortable with Stefan Williams being a groin pull away from playing in the NHL.
Right.
Okay, that's
all a groin pull away from playing in the AHL, Dan.
Right, but Ruby's, he's not going to stay in the NHL for long. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and once Halak is healthy, and they have to probably put Berube on waivers, he could get claimed by another team that's interested in a goalie, or he can get sent down to Bridgeport and play there. So we'll see.
Yeah, no. So also the Maple Leafs have made a signing, or a signing on waivers. Mike, who they grab?
Yeah, Frankie Corrado, the defenseman from the Vancouver Canucks, which, if you look at where the Leafs are, this is pretty smart. He's a 22-year-old defenseman who's split time between the AHL and the NHL the last couple seasons. A lot of people in Vancouver were a little worried that him and or Lyndon Vey were going to get claimed on waivers. I believe he's still on his entry-level deal. Last year, his entry-level deal. He's a Toronto native. He's a right-hand shot, and the general consensus is here is this is a guy that in a couple years with playing regular ice time, he could be a decent 4, 5, 6 defenseman for an NHL team. So I think along with the stuff we were talking about Robidas on the previous first half of the webcast, along with guys like Scott Harrington having waiver ability to go down to the AHL, that they're going to give Corrado a long look to try to earn a job. Plus, they put Richard Panik on waivers, ironically, around the same time last year that Tampa Bay put him on waivers. And I'm not saying that this is a guarantee, but he was one of John Cooper's faves in Norfolk when they won the Calder Cup, and he was not pleased that he got claimed by Toronto. If there's any way for Tampa to fit a roster spot and claim Panik, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
And this, of course, led to the great fun headline last year of Panik in Toronto.
Well,
we all remember that moment.
Are they going to miss time?
What's that, Dan?
What's the status of Tyler Johnson and Alex Killorn? Are they gonna be ready for opening night? Because it might make sense. They might need a forward.
Yeah, they said it was day to day.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what Corrado? Russ, give us the.
I like him. He's got a little bit of offensive ability. Always has. He's got a good frame on him, so he can be physical. His defense is good. It's not great. He could be a really good 5 or a 6. He's never really gotten a shot. He's never gotten more than 10 or 15 games at a time, and I do like him a little bit, and I think this was a good pickup for them.
It was funny. I don't know if you guys saw Sportsnet.ca, which I actually like their new website design. It's a lot. For those, just check it out at some point. I'm not usually a fan of their stuff, their website. I like their stuff. But Elliot Friedman was on the video that comes up right when you go on the site, saying this morning that look for Corrado to get picked up by somebody. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't a surprise. And also, like I say, if you want to know who is close with what teams, that's always a good thing to know with your insiders. Just just a little hint there.
Well, they said. Yesterday it was said that it would be surprising based on his age, based on his level of experience, based on his salary, that Corrado, and he got multiple claims, but Toronto, based on last year's stats, was the highest of the teams that put in a claim. So there you go.
The benefits of losing last year continue.
More benefits to come.
They continue right up till the game day before the game of the new season. Right up till then, they continue. That's excellent. The Montreal Canadiens have also picked up someone.
Paul Byron.
Paul Byron, who is really funny because Paul Byron. There's a really, this is just a total aside, but there's a producer in Brooklyn, New York, called Paul Byron, who played keyboards with Amy Mann, and I worked with him on a couple different things too. And I would always call him accidentally Paul Byron as opposed to Paul Bryan before Paul Byron was in the league. So now I knew I would spell this wrong today, and I did the first time I posted it. It's Paul Byron, and Paul Byron's Montreal, and they've already given him a number. He's already going to wear number 41. This is a Russ, thoughts on this one?
This is a great pickup for my fantasy team because he was in my AHL roster, so I'm happy. But he's a versatile guy. He can play center or wing. He is a guy that definitely can win a few faceoffs. He's a guy that can put up some points. He's decent two-way. He's a really good third or fourth line guy. He's not great, but this is good for Montreal because why not? They need a little boost, little goals here. They're gonna have to get scoring from everybody. So if he gets you, 7 goals, 8 goals, that's good.
Right. Yeah. No, I think so too.
I never knew Mark Bergevin was trying to rebuild the 2012-13 Rochester Americans because he keeps picking up ex-Buffalo Sabres like Flynn and Paul Byron. He's a good workman-like depth forward. He's making less than $1 million. He's an energy guy. I think he fits in that fourth line role. It's not a bad pickup. It's not going to get the Montreal Canadiens where they need to get in terms of scoring goals or anything of that nature.
He gets between 6 and 8 goals. That's something,
Yeah, and he doesn't take stupid penalties, which the guy who he's replacing because he's been suspended without pay normally does. So it's a net plus for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely connected to that as well. Couple quick little news notes before we get onto the predictions for the West Coast because we need to get that. Yager's growing his mullet back. All should be happy about that. He said he has to do it.
He has to do it.
That's pretty funny from Yager's part. It's just something he's got to do. And then Marty Brodeur, they're building a statue, an urn or something out front for the not a statue, just a statue of Marty Brodeur.
You mean St. Louis Brave?
I want to let Marty Biron know he's not getting a statue.
Yeah,
Sorry,
tell
Marty.
Marty. He'll be happy. Marty will be happy that he's not getting a statue.
Yes, but if they made a statue of Marty Baron, it would have to have a 24-hour soundtrack.
Yes, he would be talking. Yes, absolutely.
No, he'd be
Paul Biron.
wrapping his ankle tape. That's what he'd be doing.
If you're following at home, this is me confusing Paul Biron with Marty Brodeur and coming
By
up
the
with
way,
Marty Biron.
in the 1970s, the singer at the Odd in Buffalo was named Joe Byron. So I'm sure I'm gonna get that confused with Paul Byron pretty soon.
And that is the only reference of that singer we will ever have on this show. All right.
Why are they putting an employee of the St. Louis Blues in front of The Rock?
Well, I know he is an employee of the St. Louis Blues, and it's kind of, I still
think that's weird.
It is weird. I expected him to somehow be involved with the Devils for the rest of his career, and I still expect him to be back with the Devils at some point. I can't see him being not a Devil when all is said and done.
Right.
You know, and I think that the plan was that Lou was
not a Red Wing. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And don't you think Eisman will be back though? I mean, I also feel.
No, I don't.
I do.
They go where they're wanted, and he wasn't wanted as part of management. I don't think. I mean, I think they wanted him to be sort of like that with the type of Daryl Sittler role in Toronto, where he's like a spokesman for the organization. I don't think they were going to give him any kind of responsibility. And Doug Armstrong, in St. Louis, is giving him a job and a role. And I think his goal now is probably to be a general manager down the road. I don't think maybe.
Maybe that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into this now. Let's start with the Central Division.
Okay.
Which I previewed today on Hockey Buzz, and I'm going to preview the Pacific next, which this afternoon because those people get up later, so I figured that made sense.
The 3-hour delay.
Right, I'm using the 3-hour delay to my advantage in this case. I like it. All right, so I'm going to go the way instead of going team by team, which I don't think we have time for, nor we have talked about all these teams in depth before. I just think that what I was going to do is I was going to give you my order, and then each of us will give our order of the Central Division, and then I will then talk about the glaring problems with all of your orders, and then we will go from there.
Thank you.
Makes sense? All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going number 7. I'm going to go 7-1 just for dramatic purposes. Number 7, I have Colorado. I don't think that they are going to be better having lost O'Reilly. I don't see this as being a thing that's going to help them. I don't think they did enough to. And I don't think they're giving O'Reilly enough credit to what he went for the team. And the defense hasn't gotten better enough yet. And there's just too many iffy situations in Colorado. I mean, but that being said, they would probably make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. They might even make the playoffs if they were in the Pacific Division. But they're a good team. Winnipeg, number 6, a team that is very much in flux. I compared this to, we have the Andrew Ladd Bufflin situation hanging on, and the Jets are in the middle of a very good rebuild. But at the same time, this rebuild is going. And we had Peter Tessier on here talk about this a couple times. This rebuild is taking a little bit of a step backwards to go forward. They have so many prospects they have to bring up. They're getting younger. They have to do this to be a long-term contender, which is their goal. It's not just.
I don't think it's a rebuild. I think it's a build.
It's a build. Yeah, but I think that I think Bufflin and Ladd are part of the Thrashers rebuild, and they're the last part of the Atlanta Thrashers rebuild. So that's why I think that this is sort of becoming the Winnipeg Jets rebuild. We don't know what's going to happen with them. Number 5, I have St. Louis, which I know is probably going to be lower for a lot of people. I know because they've looked good in the preseason and they have a lot of talent. I just think that this is the year they're going to not pay attention to the regular season as much. I can see Hitch focusing on different things, trying to kind of tune them up, and I think they could be a powerhouse in the playoffs, even if they get the 8th seed, which I think they will. Number 4, I have Dallas. I like what they've done. I don't think that they've done. I love what Jim Nill does. Jim Nill is the easiest GM to understand when he makes moves because he makes the moves that make sense. Sharp and Oduya, 2 players, exactly what they need. They needed experience up front, a guy who's a nice focal, like Sharp's a really focused player who has won before. He's going to help settle them down when they have issues. And Oduya brings defense, which they needed desperately. I think, but a lot of people have him higher than 4. I don't. Number 3, I have Chicago. I think, like I said yesterday, I think they're going to not be in the playoff race as of American Thanksgiving, but I think that they'll be back, and I just think that it's hard to imagine them not struggling out of the gate, and I think the Islanders will beat them, whoever's in goal, in Game 1. Minnesota, number 2. I think they're better than just Dubnyk. I think that Dubnyk, although Dubnyk, he came back last year, he also came back at the same time, that other players came back too. They got healthier and they went along the way. And I just think that they're a team ready to make some noise, and they really have a chip on their shoulder. And number one, I have the Predators again. Just because they were the one team last year that could actually, when the Hawks were playing well in the playoffs, there were times when the Predators actually dominated them, in my opinion. Now, the Predators didn't do it over the course of an entire game, and I'm writing that off for experience. I mean, the Hawks have the experience to get back into these playoff games, to take it back. But if Pekka Rinne stays healthy all year last year, the Preds would have run away with the division. Shea Weber being hurt in the Chicago series, of course, didn't help at all. They need Rinne to stay healthy. That's a big if. I'm not even going to get into the why I think that. And then so that's my 7. I will go next to Dan for your 7. Dan?
Okay. Predictions surely to go wrong. I agree with you. I think Colorado brings up. Well, first, let me preface this. I believe every team in this division feels that they're a playoff team. And if some of these teams were in other divisions, they probably would be. But a couple teams have to miss the playoffs here, and I don't think the Avalanche are there yet. I think they're taking a little bit. I think O'Reilly is, while I'm not a huge O'Reilly fan, I do think that they will take a step back down the middle there, and they still need defensemen. At the end of the day, they still need Seth Jones. And I first guessed it then, but they still need that franchise defenseman to build around, and I just don't think they have it yet. And it's still a glaring need of theirs and throughout their system. So I have them coming in last place. Then I agree with you. I think Winnipeg I really like their young players there, but they need to grow, they need to learn, and they might take a step back because of it. I still don't love their goaltending situation, although I love their goaltending future. So I think they could take a step back this year and will not make the playoffs. Then I'm going to go with St. Louis. I like St. Louis. I think they're a great regular season team, but they just haven't proven anything in the playoffs. I do still think they'll be in the mix. I do still think they'll be a wild card team. I just don't know what they are when they get to the playoffs. Then we're going to go with Chicago. I like Chicago. I love their core. They've played a lot of hockey the past couple of years, and I just think every time they have to rip it apart and put it back together, it's not going to always work. And I think this year they might take a step back because of it. You can't just keep replacing the players that they're replacing. I do think Tevarainen will succeed in a larger role. I'm not sure about the blue line after, obviously, Keith and Seabrook. I really like Marco Dano in the Saad trade, and I was really surprised when he went down to the minors because I thought he was someone given more responsibility, could supplement some of the offense. I also think the Kane distraction is going to be a distraction until that's resolved. So after Chicago, then I'm going to go with Dallas. This team needed some veteran leadership, and I think Sharp and O'D are going to do that. I don't love the goaltending, but I think it's good enough. But boy, that team can score. And they can score and score and score. A healthy Seguin for the whole year and a healthy Nichushkin is really going to help as well. Then we're going to go with Minnesota, number 2. For a team that's that talented, I think they should score more. And it puzzles me why they don't. I like their team. I like their roster a lot. I still don't think they have a dynamic number 1 center that they really need to separate themselves. I think that could be their Achilles heel down the middle. And if Devin Dubnyk, if last year was an anomaly, or I just don't think you can expect that kind of repeat performance. I do think he will be good, though, and their system allows him to be successful. And then we're going to go with Nashville winning the division again. I think they're going to be better for the experience they gained last year. That defense is electric. And I think if Rinne can stay healthy, they'll be fine. And I expect them to punch in a few more goals this year as well.
I think you're brilliant, Dan, because you're almost just like mine, except for 2. So I'm not going to criticize any of them. I think they were that good. Now that Dan and I have set the bar incredibly high, we're going to go to Russ for your next up.
Well, that's fine. I go Avalanche are going to be in the bottom. I mean, it's going to be hard for them to get more than the 90 points they got last year. They've lost O'Reilly. They still have guys developing. They still don't have 3 solid lines. Their blue line's a little better, but it's not up to standards with the rest of the division, so I think that's where they miss out. Dallas next. I don't like having 2 guys used to playing full-time goalie, splitting time now.
Interesting.
when they're not that old. Like, if it were Glenn Hall and Jacques Plante when they went to the Stanley Cup, both guys were old. They were okay with it. They probably didn't want to play that many games. But these guys want to play as many games as they can still. So I think that's going to be a problem. Their blue line's a problem. I mean, defensively, it's a problem. They have some offensive defensemen now, but defensively, they're going to have some problems. Next up is Winnipeg. I'm not a big Pavelec guy. Everybody knows I love Connor Hellebuck, but he's not getting in there right now. And so I like where they are in the sense of their forwards. I think their blue line's pretty good. Their problem is in net. It really is. And it might be good enough to sort of contend again this year, but they won't go again with Pavelec next year. And I think that's when they'll start to make a jump, and a few more of the young guys like Morrissey and a couple of those guys will come up and really contribute. Batan, whoever's making the team, whoever's not making the team, that will work itself out next year. Buffalo as well, and I think that's going to be a thing. Now, St. Louis is next for me. I'm fading on St. Louis. It's just Hitchcock's grasp, like Darth Vader, is fading on that organization. The goaltending, I know Kevin loves Elliott, but I've seen enough of Elliott to know he can't play a million games. He can't. He's not that kind of goalie. So they're okay in net. They're not great in net.
It's not the goalie you're looking for, Russ.
Jordan Binnington's the goalie I want to get in there.
Yes, me too.
Until they're ready to do that, I think that's when they're going to take that next step. I mean, they have a great blue line. They have very good forwards. I think Stasny can only get better for them. Losing Oshie will hurt a little bit, but it won't kill him. Tarasenko will even get better than he was last year. Their power play will be great. They'll probably make the playoffs, probably. But I don't know that. I have Minnesota next, based on the fact that I think Dubnyk will do what he did last year. If he doesn't, they're going to be, in worse shape. They're probably going to end up being in 6th. But everything else is there. They have forward. Jason Zucker being healthy would be a big deal because he is a clutch goal scorer and he gets 25 goals. And defensively, I really do like them. I mean, look, they have Suter. They have a lot of guys there. Brodin plays a boatload of minutes, probably gets no credit in this league. But everything's riding on Dubnyk. It's kind of terrible because the only thing that could really derail this team is the Nick Backstrom situation, which I guess he's going to start the year injured. Is that what I would assume? Because I don't think he's ready yet, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing so far. And they sent Mike Riley down today, so that's the defense. They really like their defense too, obviously, for having done that.
Yeah, I mean, Riley's really close, so that's a guy that they could bring up anytime because he's probably 22, and so that's good depth on D. But again, it's going to depend on goaltending for them, and they can't get behind like they did last year. No goalie's going to go on a run like that again this year to get a minute. That was just one of those once in a while magic carpet rides. That's not going to happen again. I have Nashville next. I think this is where they are. I mean, I think Seth Jones will improve. I don't think he's going to improve as much as you're hoping yet, Dan. I still think it's a year or two away for that. Defensively, they're great. Like they're probably the best defensive core in the league. Offensively, they're not great. I was hoping Kevin Fiala would make that team. I mean, again, without Barry Trotz, I think it's sometimes when you have a kid like Fiala, if you feel everything else is in place except for his defense, then sometimes you have to suck it up to get some extra goals. I kind of worry where they're going to get secondary scoring from. I do. And I do like Forsberg. I like a lot of their players, but there's not a lot of big-time scoring. They're going to have to get a lot of 15 and 20 goal guys to sort of exist. The Chicago Blackhawks, they're bigger than they used to be. I think that's the one thing, like when we talk about them tearing it down and building it back up, Dan had some really good points on that, but they're much bigger than they were. Even a guy like Trevor Van Riemsdyk, 6'2". They've added a lot of 6'2", 6'4" guys like Artem Anisimov, who I think can get 25, 30 goals for them. I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll be fine in net. They'll figure it out. Everybody will hate Crawford. He'll be in there for a while. Then Crawford will be out for a while. They seem to do this every year now. I don't even get worried about that anymore. I'm not even worried about the mileage on them either. I do worry about the Kane situation, but I still think they win it.
Yep. All right. Good stuff. I like all that. One of the things that you guys both mentioned is the Wild. I did some research today, and then one of those things you spend time doing research, then you find out right afterwards that it's being talked about on XM because I turned on XM and they were talking about this exact thing. That the Wild even strength were in the top 5 scoring last year. They are not a bad offensive team. They just were terrible on the power play.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. If they get their power play going, which is a lot of that's on Thomas Vanek, because he's the guy they expect to be the power play guy. And he was good in the second half of last year, but really started off terribly. All right, Mike, it's up to you.
Okay, I agree with the everyone in terms of Colorado.
Okay.
I'm still puzzled by the signing of Eric Johnson for $6 million a year. I think that's symptomatic of their desperate need on defense that they had to lock him up for that much.
Yeah.
They're going to hurt regarding the loss of O'Reilly. I think McKinnon will have a bounce back year. That there's some talent there, but the secondary scoring are guys like Iginla and Tanguay who are getting a little long on the tooth. So I don't see them getting 90 points. I think they'll probably be in the mid 80s. Sixth, they have Winnipeg. I think the overriding factor, I agree with what Russ said regarding the goaltending. I've never been a big Pavlik fan, and Hutchinson is a decent NHL backup, but I don't think he can jump into a number 1 spot. I think the overriding factor with that team is, will the rookies that they're playing at the beginning of the year have success, Ehlers and Patan, and how the Byfuglien scenario pans out. Because honestly, if it gets to the deadline and they don't have a deal, he's gone. And if they trade him, I think they're going to have to it's going to have to be a hockey deal and not a deal where they're going to get prospects back, because they want to get players that they can retain for 2 or 3 years. And I don't know how many teams out there are going to be willing to do a hockey trade for Dustin Byfuglien, who's an expiring contract. So I think they're in a little bit of a scary scenario. So I think they're going to be 6th. 5th, I have the Minnesota Wild. I think all the wild card teams are coming from the Central. I think the Wild are a playoff team. I don't think Dubnyk is going to play as superbly as he did last year, but I think they have a lot of depth up front. They have some good young guys like Zucker, who scored over 20 goals. I think Charlie Coyle can contribute more, and I like their defense, especially Brodin, who is really an unsung defenseman. Number 4, I have Dallas. I agree with what Russ was saying in terms of the concerns. Their defense is right now a lot of young guys, the Alexiaks, the Klingbergs, who had a great rookie season. If Honka comes up, but they really don't have a lot of. There's Goligoski, there's Demers, but there's not a lot of veteran depth there, and I think in the end that might hurt them. But their offense could be the best in the league. I mean, with Sagan and Ben, with Spezza, and if Nichushkin comes back and plays anywhere close to the way he did as a rookie, I think that could be the highest scoring team in the NHL. But the funny thing is, if it doesn't work out, Lindy Ruff, his head might be on the chopping block in Dallas. He might be the first one to go of any of the coaches. Number 3, I have Chicago for all the reasons that were said. I mean, there's going to be an adjustment period. You're going to have players coming in like Tikhonov and Panarin and Artem Anisimov, who are going to have to adjust to the system under Quenneville. But the core is still there. You still have Yarmulson, Keith, and Seabrook. You still have Kane and Taves, barring any legal scenario happening with Kane, and Hossa, and you have Crawford. I think that'll be enough to get them one of the 3 guaranteed spots. Number 2, I have Nashville. Nashville did not improve offensively. And they're so reliant on Philip Forsberg in terms of him producing like he did last year. I think it was incumbent upon David Poile to go out and take a little of the pressure off of a kid like that and off of James Neal and add some offense. They do have one of the best defenses in the league, and I think the deal that we were talking about during the summer of them trading a guy like Ekholm or a guy like Ellis to bring in a forward would have been the way to go. But right now they're starting out with the same offense, and they're completely reliant on Pekka Rinne to play 65 games. And honestly, I think he could get hurt again, and if that happens, then it's your buddy Carter Hutton to the rescue back. Number 1, I disagree with everybody here. I think the St. Louis Blues will win the division. That doesn't mean that they're going to have success in the playoffs, because that's what their problem has been. But during the regular season, I think they're the cream of the crop in this division. They have 2 good offensive lines. Their defense is one of the best in the league with Shattenkirk, with Bouwmeester, and with Pietrangelo. And I think they're probably going to go more with Jake Allen than they are with Elliott. And I think in the regular season they will have a lot of success. It's when it gets to April that they're going to have problems.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you can take the top 5 teams in this division and throw them into a hat You really can. I mean, I really think the Blues could be that team. I just feel like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, maybe this is the year that they don't have the great regular season, but have the great playoffs. Like maybe this is the year that happens, and we've seen that happen before with teams. When you look at around the league at who's picking, it's generally pretty much St. Louis and Minnesota first. A lot of people are picking St. Louis and Minnesota first, although there's a huge, unbelievable, overwhelming love for Anaheim around the league as far as winning the Stanley Cup goes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the East, this comes down to two teams in the East. Everyone's just talking about. I can't remember a year when it's been so definitive in preseason predictions, where three teams basically to get to the final two. It's either Anaheim, Washington, or Tampa with everybody. And I think there's other teams involved that could easily knock off. Anaheim can get knocked off by any of these teams.
I've got one thing to add. I think I will disagree about the Lindy Ruff thing. I think Hitchcock will lose his job before Lindy Ruff does. I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I made one of my bold statements that I put in my blog that I didn't talk on here is I think we're going to go through the first NHL season in forever without a coach getting fired during the year. When I went down through the list of I know. That's why it's a bold, wacky prediction. But I'm telling you, when I go through the list of coaches, Capuano might.
Yeah, I was gonna say Capuano. I mean, I can think of.
But I think that they're going to be good enough. I don't think Capuano is going to get fired. I think Hitchcock. It's all about the playoffs, and as long as
I'll go double or nothing on that 20 you never paid me on that.
Really?
Like I said, here's my rumor that I created myself. The fire-breathing dragon of Tortorella is across the river in Secaucus.
I know. That's self-created rumor. I remember that.
Tortorella in Brooklyn, Dan.
Whew.
God.
The $20 I never paid you. All right. Okay.
We're moving Hell's Kitchen.
All right.
Let it ride.
Let it ride. I'll do that, Kev. I'll do that, Russ. You got it. $40.
To your point, Ak, the point difference between first and fifth in the Central could be less than 10 points.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
8 points.
And sixth, you can throw sixth there, even in there too. I mean, Winnipeg could be right there as well if they're indeed the 60. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be a great year. It's going to be. It's just that every year this division gets tighter. It's not going the opposite direction. Chicago is not running away with it. Chicago does have everyone's number in the playoffs, and that's the problem right now. Chicago is inside the heads of everybody. Well, Nashville, Minnesota, St. Louis are all.
I will say this too about the Winnipeg thing. I worry if Nick Ehlers is not playing top six, then I worry about what he's going to be able to do for them. He's a top six player. I think there are some teams that could when you see a guy, you could put him on the third line and it's not a problem. I think he's a guy that has to be in that top six. If he's not in the mix with those kinds of players, I don't think they're going to get what they hope to get out of him.
Yeah.
And he has to go back to junior if he doesn't make, right? Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, the other thing that keeps coming to my head whenever we was talking was this. Pavelec, okay, who I am not a huge fan of either, but has his moments where he really looks good.
Yes.
Could be this year's Devin Dubnyk, not with Winnipeg.
Oh, okay.
What if Winnipeg were to move Pavelec? If Pavelec was to go someplace else, the way we talk about Pavelec is not that much different than the way we've talked about Dubnyk. I mean, in the same way as Dubnyk would show moments where he was fantastic as well. But then would give up bad goals after bad goals, which is the same thing that Pavelec does. I just don't think there's that much of a difference moving forward. And if I'm
but the problem is, Zach, I don't know if anybody is going to be willing to take a flyer on Pavelec, who is making close to $4 million this year and next year. He's too much of a commodity that most teams know. And
what if your top goalie goes down, right? What if your top goalie goes down? You're Boston.
Honestly, I saw this reported by Eric Francis of Sportsnet yesterday that Calgary is probably going to go with Ramo and Ordio, and will trade Hiller. And I think Hiller on the market has a lot more attractive qualities because he's got 1 year left in his contract and he's been a number one goalie before. Whereas I think Pavelec has never really, carved out that job as number one. Every time he plays a month and a half of really good hockey, he plays 3 weeks where he's an absolute stinker, and they want to hang him by a rope.
Last year he had a 920. The last time he had anything even close to 910 for a save percentage was 2011-2012. He had a 914 once with the Thrashers. He just has never been able to put 2 years together.
Right.
Right. No, I agree. But then last year, Time Machine, Dubnyk, exactly the same.
Yeah, but there were extenuating circumstances with Dubnyk. I mean, he went to Arizona. He worked with Sean Burke. Burke straightened out his game. He gets traded. His salary was low, and everything, all the stars aligned. Now, he's got to repeat what he did with Pavlik. Unless the Winnipeg hired the rock star of goaltender coaches, he's going to have the same problems that he's had with inconsistency his entire career, and I don't see anything different happening.
But he
Here's
could
the
get
thing with Dubnyk. Dubnyk had years of 916, 914, 921 in Edmonton, and we still maligned him. He goes to Arizona, he was a 916, and then finally with a good defense and straightened him out even more, he was a 936. He won't be a 936 this year, but capable of being like a 925.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. Okay, so we're at a crossroads with the Hockey Buzzcast today. I'm trying to figure out what to do here. We have tomorrow. Do we have you tomorrow, Dan?
Yes, you do.
Okay, good. We have everybody tomorrow. I'm going to propose that we start tomorrow at 1:00, if this is okay with you guys, and go through the other 3 divisions, and until we're done. And
sure.
I think that way, because we obviously have to get them in tomorrow, but I don't want to rush the Pacific Division in, and also, this way I can tease my Pacific Division prediction, which you want to hear.
Can we give a Pacific Division preview? Arizona will be dead last.
All right, okay.
I have a bold Pacific Division preview.
A specific Pacific Division preview?
Yes, that's it. I have a bold prediction on that division.
Hold on a second. Here we go.
This is a terrific Pacific Division.
You got to tune in tomorrow to see what it is.
Okay, good. Wow, nicely done.
Now here's one. I got this on an email. I think this is a hard question to answer. You can either answer it now or let it go till tomorrow.
No, let's do it. Let's do a question.
What coach is the NHL leader in wins since 2006-2007?
That's 2006-07. I'm going to go Lindy Ruff.
No, it is not Lindy Ruff.
No.
Mike's right. It's Alain Vigneault.
Oh,
He has
man.
more than Quenneville. He has more than Babcock. He has more than Julian.
That is surprising.
It is a little surprising.
Well, he's been to 2 Stanley Cup Finals with 2 different teams.
Well, that's true, but
and 2 President's Trophies with 2 different organizations.
Right.
does anyone else think Alain Vigneault is overrated?
No.
I do.
No. I think he's a really good coach.
I just think, look, when you add up the cups on that list, then he falls 3rd. That's all.
Sure.
Maybe it's just me. Then
He's
it's only just me. But
Marv Levy of NHL coaches.
It's not his fault he's had superstars that hang out in the half boards.
No. I'm not.
That's true.
Hey.
That's not his fault. And he's had cap situation that he inherited. That's not his fault. And he's not old enough to be Marv Levy.
One of the best Marv Levy quotes of all time. He said, "No, today is not a must-win. There's no such thing as a must-win at sports. World War II, that was a must-win."
That is a great quote. I like that. It's a good note to leave on. Check out all the predictions everywhere. Enjoy. Tonight's your last night where you have to find something else to watch. I'm going to recommend watching The Muppet Show. I think it's pretty funny.
It's really good.
Go Astros! Woo!
Do you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, The Muppets is really good. It reminds me of The Office.
It is like The Office, and a little bit like the Gary Sandling Show with with Muppets, and it's perfectly done. I thought. I mean, although Kermit, they're a little bit off on his personality, but besides that, I think we're good.
Dallas Keuchel looks like Abe Lincoln with that beard, and hopefully he pitches like Abe Lincoln tonight.
Oh yeah, I'll be watching The Muppets while you're watching that playoff game, Mike. Just know that. That's how much I think of baseball. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.